It begins without warning. A faint flicker in the lights above your kitchen table. The soft hum of the refrigerator fades into silence. Then, across the street, the traffic signals die. A second later, the entire skyline vanishes into black. From Tokyo to Toronto, London to Los Angeles, the same pulse rips through the veins of the modern world. And in one shared heartbeat, civilization loses its heartbeat. Planes vanish from radar. Data centers fall offline. Oil refineries stand still, their automated valves frozen mid-cycle. The grid, the invisible web of wires, relays, substations, satellites, and code, collapses into silence. And in that silence, you realize the age of convenience just ended. Within the first 60 seconds, disbelief fills the air. Phones lose signal, not because of overload, but because the towers themselves have no pulse. Across continents, control rooms watch their monitors blink once, then die. Power operators try to reroute circuits, activate backup grids, spin up emergency turbines. But it's not a failure, it's a free fall. Because this time, the outage is not local, it's global. Somewhere, in a government bunker, red lights flash over a map of the planet. The crisis boards light up one by one. Communication loss, transportation failure, energy collapse. And while politicians scramble for words, the world below starts counting down, not from minutes, but from the days civilization has left before darkness becomes the new baseline. The theories multiply fast. Was it a cyber strike, a solar flare, a chain of synchronized EMPs? No one knows, and that's the danger. Intelligence agencies detect fragments of code infecting grid control software. Same patterns that once traced back to Russia, to China, to groups no one admits funding. Meanwhile, astronomers report a geomagnetic storm so intense it could fry unshielded transformers by the thousands. Somewhere between human malice and cosmic accident, the grid, the nervous system of our world, just stopped firing. And the first casualty isn't power, it's trust. Trust in the idea that someone, somewhere, has control.
By the end of the first hour, subways stall underground. Elevators trap the last office workers of the modern era. Hospitals switch to emergency generators, their diesel tanks barely enough for 48 hours. And somewhere, a child in a high-rise calls for her mother as the emergency lights flicker, then fade. The second hour brings realization. The blackout isn't local. It's not your city. It's the world. And suddenly, people stop asking when the lights will come back. They start asking if. In the digital silence, panic becomes the new signal. Highways clog with stalled cars. Electric pumps freeze at gas stations. The air goes still. No aircraft, no air traffic, no drones, no hum of background civilization. The quiet isn't peaceful. It's oppressive. The kind of quiet you only hear after impact. Governments scramble to reassure through analog broadcasts, scratchy AM signals bouncing between continents, each one barely reaching anyone. Temporary disruption, they say. Stay calm. Power restoration underway. But no one believes it, because restoration requires coordination, and coordination requires communication, and communication, ironically, runs on power. By the first night, the skyline of civilization is gone. The Earth's night side, once visible from orbit as a galaxy of light, now looks like a dark ocean with scattered embers of survival. Hospital zones, isolated bunkers, private solar farms flickering like fireflies in the void. But for most, it's total darkness. And that's when the real countdown begins.
Day 1. Adaptation. The realization that everything you depend on runs through an invisible thread, and that thread is gone. Water pressure fades as electric pumps fail. Food distribution stops. The smart homes of yesterday become inert shells. In a world without energy, even the rich and powerful find themselves equalized by entropy. Cash becomes meaningless when digital systems freeze. Gold can't light a room. Influence doesn't charge a phone. Those who prepared quietly, the ones once mocked as alarmists, become the new anchors of society. The ones with solar panels, hand pumps, canned food and radios, and in every darkened neighborhood, a few windows still glow, faint but alive. As night stretches into dawn, a pattern emerges. Communities that act collectively adapt faster. Those that isolate collapse. Leadership shifts from institutions to individuals, from bureaucrats to neighbors with flashlights and calm voices. And in that fragile first sunrise, the new rule is simple. Survival is local. Day 2. Fracture. Without refrigeration, perishables spoil. Diesel supplies thin. Hospitals start triaging by candlelight. Governments begin invoking emergency laws, not to restore order, but to ration resources. In many places, old rivalries reignite between city and countryside, military and civilians, neighbor and stranger. Rumors become weapons. One voice on the radio says it was a cyber attack from the east. Another claims a solar storm destroyed satellites. Some whisper that it's retaliation, an act of war hidden behind plausible deniability. Truth fractures into 1,000 interpretations. And in that fog, power, the humankind, starts to reorganize. Across Europe, local councils invoke energy sovereignty. In Asia, ports shut down, hoarding remaining fuel. In the Middle East, oil exports vanish overnight. On Wall Street, the markets don't crash, they vanish. Because without electricity, even collapse needs voltage. But the most dangerous force isn't military, it's psychological. When humans lose light, they lose orientation, in space, in time, in hope. Days blur into nights, nights stretch without meaning, and without news, people begin to invent their own.
Day 3. Tipping point. By now, silence is routine. The sound of generators hums through suburbs like a new kind of heartbeat. But diesel runs low, and replacements aren't coming. Across continents, small groups improvise, sharing solar cells, bartering batteries for medicine. Radio frequencies turn into lifelines. 3,800 kilohertz becomes the new global commons, a place where humanity whispers to itself in Morse code. And yet, not everyone whispers. Some adapt faster. Networks of volunteers, amateur engineers and survivalists form loose federations, creating microgrids that power small towns or relief camps. Others weaponize scarcity, seizing fuel depots and cutting off rival groups. In this fractured world, the new frontier isn't land, it's voltage. What begins as cooperation slowly hardens into new hierarchies. Power, literally, becomes power. Week 1. Collapse. With transportation frozen, supply chains unravel. Ports fill with dead ships. Trains rust on the rails. Nations once defined by industry fall silent. The hum of modernity, refrigeration units, turbines, broadband routers, all gone. The entire planet has reverted to the mechanical 1800s, but without the craftsmanship, patience, or faith that built that era. The global economy doesn't crash, it evaporates. Because in a blackout, value isn't measured in currency, it's measured in calories, watts, and trust. And then, somewhere in the chaos, whispers begin again. About who caused it, about why. Conspiracy or cosmic accident? Theories spread faster than food. Some claim an EMP detonation chain. Others speak of a rogue AI buried deep in an industrial control network. In the dark, every possibility becomes a threat. Month 1. The new normal. Civilization begins to stratify. Those with off-grid systems, farms, water wells, solar rigs, become the new centers of population. Cities hollow out. Suburbs mutate into micro-kingdoms of self-reliance. And slowly, the grid, once a single global organism, reforms into a patchwork of independent cells. It's not the end of the world, it's the end of this world. And somewhere, quietly, resilience begins to bloom.
For those who survive the first month, survival becomes routine. Every habit changes. You ration water like gold, trade skills instead of money, and learn that light, even candlelight, carries weight. You start mapping your neighborhood, identifying who has what: the retired electrician, the nurse, the mechanic. Each person becomes a node in a living network. Cooperation isn't charity anymore, it's infrastructure. And slowly, a truth emerges. Civilization was never the power grid itself. It was the connections between people. The grid only mirrored it. But just when the rhythm stabilizes, nature intervenes again. A winter storm, a heat wave, a drought. And suddenly, humanity's fragile adaptation faces its first test. In northern regions, people rediscover wood stoves, thermal mass, and primitive insulation. In the south, they invent shade, reflective tarps, wet cloth coolers, air tunnels. Every act of survival becomes an act of creativity. And yet, amid the improvisation, fear lingers, because everyone knows the truth. If the lights ever return, they might not belong to the same world. The reflection. Months later, when isolated networks begin reconnecting, when a few satellites flicker back online, and radio towers hum faintly again, the survivors realized something. The world didn't die. It reset. The global blackout wasn't just a failure of energy, it was a revelation of dependency. A mirror held up to modern life, showing how thin the layer of stability really was. And in that mirror, people see what held, not power grids, not governments, but the quiet endurance of small communities that refused to fall apart. Villages that shared food, families that shared tools, strangers that chose dialogue over panic. The day the grid went dark was not the day humanity ended. It was the day it remembered itself. Because when everything man-made failed, the only current that kept flowing was the one between us: empathy, resilience, cooperation. And maybe, just maybe, that was the reset we didn't know we needed. If this story made you think about how fragile our systems are and how strong we could be without them, subscribe to The Survival Brief. Because understanding isn't fear, it's preparation. And in the next blackout, knowledge will be your generator.